beautiful thing to witness, so thank you all for coming. My name is Courtney Terry. I work at the Public Library here in McMinnville, and we partner every month on the first Thursday at 6 p.m. with Dan and Nancy, owners of the Gallery at 10 Oaks, to hold these Good evening, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming. We're going to go ahead and get started with our first poetry night at the Gallery at 10 Oaks for I guess technically it's the season. We did take a break over the summer, so we'll go ahead and get started. Just a couple quick announcements. First off, if you haven't previously heard of the Poetry While You Wait fundraiser program, it's really fantastic and actually features quite a few of our poets that we have here who may be reading tonight. But it's a fundraiser for the Friends of the McMinnville Public Library, and the money raised specifically goes to programs like Poetry Night. So it's September 20th. On the 3rd on 3rd on Friday at 3rd Street. If you wander over to the Ransom Wine and Distillery next to Pirano and Daughters on 3rd Street, you can ask one of our talented poets to write a poem of the subject of your choice for a donation. And there's been some really fantastic ones. So just on your calendar, 3rd Friday on 3rd Street, stop by the Pirano and Daughters Ransom tasting room and support the library even more than you already are today. Thank you so much for coming. So tonight we have a very special program. We have Bethany Lee. Some of you may have seen her. She performed for us at the library in April as part of National Poetry Month and accompanied Kim Stafford with his poetry. And tonight she had a new book of poetry that was just released in May, which she does have copies available for purchase. So she'll be reading and providing us with musical accompaniment. And then after that, we'll open it up for the open mic. If you haven't signed up already, there are sign-up sheets at the back table by Caroline. And thank you, Bethany. We'll go ahead and get started.
So I hear it's an open mic after this. Are some of you going to be playing the harp as well? That'd be great. I'm going to be back and forth a little bit this evening, but I thought I would share, just to begin with, the opening piece from this book. Poetry brings present that which is apart. Let us be here together. I don't know what your day has been like today, but I'd like to share a little bit of music with you just to help us come present and be here together. And this song is mostly just a list of beautiful things that the songwriter noticed. So as you listen, maybe you will think of some of the beautiful things that you've noticed in your day today.
Holy is the dish and drain, the soap and sink, the cup and plate, and warm wool socks and cold white tile, shower heads and good dry towels, and frying eggs sound like songs, with bits of salt measured in my palm. It's all a part of a sacrament. It's holy as the day is spent. Holy is the busy street, the cars that boom with passion's beat, the checkout girl counting change, the hands that shook my hands today, and hymns of geese fly overhead to spread their wings like their parents did. Blessed be the dog who runs in her sleep to chase some wild, elusive thing. Holy is the familiar room in quiet moments in the afternoon. Its folding sheets like folding hands to pray as only laundry can. I'm letting go of all my fears, like autumn leaves made of earth and air. And the summer came and summer went. It's holy as the day is spent. Holy is the place I stand to give whatever small good I can. The empty page, the open book, redemption everywhere I look. Unknowingly we slow our pace in the shade of unexpected grace. And with grateful smiles and sad lament, it's holy as a day is spent. And morning light sings providence. It's holy as the day is spent. Holy as the day is spent.
This piece is called A Quintessence, and there's an epigraph from Gerard Manley Hopkins. I say that we are wound with mercy round and round as if with air. We, the mystics, were not surprised by the discovery of dark matter. We could have told you all along, what we can see is not all there is. When will there be a scope sensitive enough for mercy's sake? What instrument could be deployed to measure it? And what would the units be? A sweetness of mercy? If we could measure mercy in mothers, like we count engine strength in horsepower, gather it in buckets, transfer it in pipelines, would we deplete its source? Strip it from the air and leave the poor bereft? Or could we deem it a self-sustaining resource? The giving of mercy yields mercy. We breathe it in and out as the trees breathe air. We are made ever richer, I believe, in the exchange. I don't know about you, but I'm always curious about the title piece of a book of poetry. Why the author picked that one to be the title and why they stuck it in the middle that way. I thought maybe you'd like to hear the title piece from this book tonight. It's called The Breath Between. I juggle a bunch of different things in my life as a musician and writer. And one of the puzzle pieces that I find a way to fit in is working with the harp in healthcare and hospice settings. And this piece was written from one of those experiences. The breath between is not the space between the breaths. Breathe the breath between. When the old monk was almost done with his body, already done with his watch, You run out of time before the end, it seems, before you run out the time. Done with feet, done with hands, he will not again walk from this place or make. To be caught in now so completely looks like loss. Does it feel like loss to him? Does it feel like a gift? Like the shape of being held? This is the breath between the question and the answer. The breath between the bread and the wine, after the thanks has been given, before the nourishment received. Breathe the breath between. Where else do you find this breath hiding? How do you pick it up? Breathe it in and let it go. Can you name it? Can you name this breath? Call it here. Call it holy. Call it home. My Facebook memories are reminding me these days that it's been 6 years since my family spent a sabbatical year at sea. We took our 7th and 8th grade daughters and headed out into the ocean and down to Mexico, where we spent about 6 months sailing around before we sailed back. And some of the pieces of poetry from this book were inspired by that trip or by my other experiences in the ocean, because that was not the first time we'd ever gone out. This piece I'd like to share next was about the first night that I was ever out at sea on my own tiny boat, and how scary it was and how brilliant and amazing. I was hand steering and the rest of the family was down below, and the wind seemed very high. In retrospect, I have no idea, because we've been in worse since, but at the time it seemed extraordinarily high. And let me just say, you never get over being afraid of the dark. It is very dark out off the coast of Washington on a foggy night. And it was cold, so cold. And your body is always more frightened in the cold. I started to hear a weird noise. I was singing because that was all I could think to do. I didn't have an iPod or anything to listen to. And I started hearing this strange noise, and I had figured out what sounds the boat made and what it sounded like when we flew into a flock of birds and they took off, their feet flapping against the waves. But this was a noise I didn't recognize, so I looked around thinking, are we coming up on some sort of debris in the water? What is going on here? Finally, I looked down into the water, and alongside the boat were 2 dolphins, illuminated by the phosphorescence in the water, one on each side of the boat. So I called my husband up, there's dolphins, oh my gosh, there's dolphins. So he came up to look, and of course by the time he got up, they had swum away. And so he went back to sleep, and I went back to singing, and the dolphins came back. And you know, in good stories, everything happens in threes, but it also took me 3 times of calling him up on deck to realize, oh, maybe he just needs to sleep. And finally, later, we figured out they were coming to the singing. Yeah. West of west, wind at my back, belly of fear at the climbing swell, night fall, mist rise, no moon, no stars in the sky. A hymn dislodged from the bones of my feet, where childhood days had wedged it, rose through trembling legs, flew through lungs, and poured out my open mouth. Sound fell to silence. Each note dropped onto another wave, ran alongside, and sank in my wake. Because no one was listening, the fear flowed out with the love. The dark received the song of itself. But there, in the deep, it rose back to me, carried in the mouths of the great sea dancers, illuminated by presence. They stripped the hymn of its fear, left only the blessings behind, flung them back in the boat at my feet and followed, tossed them, whistling over the boom, followed through the night, flicking the stars from their tails. So we need a little boat music. This is called the boat song. If you were a boat, my darling, a boat, my darling, I'd be the wind at your back. If you were afraid, my darling, afraid, my darling, I'd be the courage you lack. If you were a bird, then I'd be a tree, and you would come home, my darling, to me. If you were asleep, then I'd be a dream. Wherever you are, that's where my heart will be. We belong together. Oh, do you know my heart is yours? If you were the ocean, I'd be the sand. If you were the song, I'd be the band. If you were the stars, then I'd be the moon, a light in the dark, my darling, for you. We belong together. Oh, do you know my heart is yours? Oh, do you know we belong together? Oh, do you know my heart is yours? So I know many of you are also writers, and really all it takes to be a writer is to write, right? So maybe all of us have been writers or can relate to some of the feelings that I have about writing. These next two are for the writers and artists and creatives in the room. When I come mistaken, thinking that you will want to take the place where I am standing, wondering if your song will silence mine, afraid I need to shout you down to speak my own truth, I quail, and we are both thrust into the sudden darkness. In laughter, I remember my essence is my own, and also it is one with yours, which is your own in turn. It is a grand absurdity for the waves to rustle over who can be the sea, for the winds to war about which makes up the air. And then there are days like this one. Some days I forget how to be a poet. At times when I have done too much and rested too little, when I am worried and my fretful mind is consumed with everything that might be and nothing that is. My pen scribbles and runs dry, and I can't find the well within. On those days, I can still feel the empty place inside. A room with no doors, where there is calm, quiet at the center. Nothing to knock on, no one to let you in. Some days, I remember how to walk through walls. September can be a tricky month. I don't know about you, but even without anyone starting school this week in our household, there's still a lot of shifts going on. Maybe it's just in the air or in the fact that I have to remember to slow down in the school zones again after 3 months. And then the light. The sun is going down earlier and the light is fading, and I find myself getting a little panicky sometimes, even though I love the fall. And Christmas is fabulous. And I have a birthday in January, and that gets me right on through to February when the light starts to come back again. So last summer when I started noticing that feeling come back again, I wrote this for myself, and you can listen in. It's called At Summer's End. We who sleep through the nights may forget to count them. And rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. But the watchers, the vigil keepers, those who toil in the shadows, and the new-made mothers never forget that half a day is darkness. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Half a tree is underground. Half a breath is exhalation. Receive, release. Receive, release. The Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Receive, release. Receive, release. Be not dismayed at the waning light. have one more piece to share, and I'm not even sure if this one's finished because it's pretty new. My youngest graduated from high school this last spring, and so more than just September has our house in transition. I wrote this about the experience of the last few years that felt like such a transition toward young adult kids and independent children. It's called Singularity. I was a star once. I was the sun at the center, and small bodies found their orbit around me. We were made of light, and we sailed through space, a matter of nuclear indivisibility. A form this massive, drawn this tightly, was bound to go supernova. Let it all fly. And when it did, some days were nebulous. Thick clouds surrounding the melding particles. Some days I wondered if we'd all fall in to the black hole forming where once light had been. One day I looked around at what had coalesced, expanded and contracted, commenced a revolution. Rhythms shifted elliptically, apogee and perigee, and sometimes, unpredictably, syzygy. My whirling trembled at the loosening forces. My circuit arced, tilted, held. Once, I was a star at the center. I was the sun. Now all flame, all fly. We've become a galaxy. Do we have time for one more song?
Yes.
Blackbirds singing in the dead of night, take these broken wings and learn to fly all your life. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbirds singing in the dead of night, take these wounded eyes and learn to see all your life. You were only waiting for this moment to be free. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly into the light of the dark black night. the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly all your life. You are only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird fly. Blackbird fly into the light of the dark black night. Blackbirds singing in the dead of night. Take these wounded eyes and learn to see all your life. You are only waiting for this moment to be free. You are only waiting for this moment to be free.
Did you want to do a quick Q&A? Does anyone have any questions for Bethany about?
I have a silly question. Don't your fingers get sore?
So it's not like the guitar. You don't have to press very hard to make the sound. So if I'm practicing for a long time in a day, then I can sometimes get a little bit of a hot spot, but I don't even really have calluses. So no, it's not a problem. And I do sometimes have arthritis in my hands, and actually it helps to move my hands. So when my fingers are sore in another way, then it's helpful. Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
Thanks, Bonnie. Any other questions?
One question.
Sure.
I know you have a book for sale. Do you
Yeah.
have a CD that you've made?
I don't.
Consider making a CD?
I have. Licensing fees are really tricky. So the winter's job is to just write a bunch of original stuff, and then I don't have to worry about licensing fees. So we'll see how that goes. Check back.
Any other questions? Thank you again. Okay, great. Thank you, Bethany. And just remember, she has books available for sale. And we'll go ahead and get started with the open mic portion of our evening. And I looked at the list back there and I tried to memorize it, but I may have failed. But I know Bonnie was first. So. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi. Oh, this is called Mouse. Soft and cuddly, warm and snuggly, everyone's friend, but sort of ugly. And this kitty cat had a funny name. Where did it come from? Who's to blame? A new family loved her right from the start. They thought she was a real sweetheart. Her fur was just starting to reappear, filling in patches of pink with new white hair. She looked rather spotted, all pink and white. A hairless rat was what she looked like. But rat for a name would not have been nice. So it was decided Mouse might be just right. She soon was as white could be, beautiful hair, all soft and furry. She ran through the house chasing the toys that were given to her by the family's boys. One day the family had to relocate. Sadly, their mouse they could not take. So Bonnie and Jerry agreed to take her, care for her, love her, and make her purr. When Bonnie said she had to stay outside, poor Mouse pleaded and nearly cried. She eventually got used to being outdoors. She jumped, ran, and scampered on all fours. She had toys that couldn't be in the house. A ball, a scarf, and a little stuffed mouse. Her favorite was the mouse with catnip inside. It was tied on a string and swung side to side, around and around for her to chase and catch. It tickled her face, made her want to scratch. Waiting for dinner was her special pastime. Up on the back porch chair she would climb to peer in the kitchen window at dinner time. She looked forward to the salmon yummy that would satisfy her hungry tummy. Jerry would spoon it into her empty dish. Give me lots more was her continual wish. She would lick the spoon as he pulled it away, and she would say, "Brrrt," as if to say, "Thank you for treating me special each day." He'd pat her head, which meant, "You're welcome. We are glad you're here to share our home." After dinner, when Jerry relaxed in his chair, Mouse would climb onto his lap without a care. With her clawless front paws, she'd knead his lap, pushing and pulling, making it perfect for her nap. One day she was in pain with a sore on her back. She'd been stabbed by the talons of a bird attack. When Jerry and Bonnie drove her to the vet, she howled and yowled, saying, "Aren't we there yet?" She hated the engine sounds when riding in a car, and the movement made her dizzy, no matter how far. She ran a fever, lost weight, wouldn't play or eat. To be petted, she softly laid down at Bonnie's feet. Then into the yard she slowly crept and laid among the flowers, letting the tweeting birds lull her to sleep in her final hour. Thankful for 14 years she had with both families, she knows she lives on in their hearts and memories. As she watches from kitty heaven, she knows from above she is the only mouse they ever loved.
Thank you, Bonnie. Mike?
Poetry while you wait. This summer, while you were off, relaxing, we were busy collecting donations for the library on the 3rd, and we collected over June, July, and August $180. Start again the 20th and go through until probably November, I think. We stopped last year, and it's always fun. So if you come by, have a topic. We get all kinds of topics. I'm going to read a couple of poems. We got one this last time from a couple that were on vacation, and they were enjoying things, and they wanted a poem about romantics. And that was the word, romantic. So this is my poem about romantics. They have feathers in their hair, dancing thigh to thigh to sweet music of their hearts. Daffodils in a vase and a bright morning sun, they smile across the breakfast table. Long walks through the forest trail, listening to the jays, they touch fresh moss. Looking at each other's eyes, what they say cannot be said in words. Sipping of wine, laughing with friends, they know what is important to a life well lived. The thing about improv poetry, when somebody says, "I want a poem about romantic and I'll come back in an hour," and then you read it, a number of poems, Bruce and David and Lucy, we all do that, and it is a real challenge and it's fun. This summer, a lot of the wineries are doing things with art in the garden and those kinds of things. Argyle had a thing this summer in June and July about art in the garden, and they invited artists to come and paint in the garden. It's sort of like, in some ways, they invited poets to do the same thing. Just like here on is it 4 times a year? I think in October this next year, the gallery here invites poets to come in and do a paintings to poetry, and we pick a poem or a painting, and we get about an hour, and we write a poem, and then we have a microphone and we read it, so it's the same kind of thing. And I have one of those. There was a little, I'm not sure I can find it. Oh, here it is. There's I don't know if it's still there, but there's a painting up on the second floor of a little rowboat that is just up on blocks. And that's the poem, the painting I picked. And it's called Retired 2. And that was the name of the painting also. Being a little boat, just a painter being pulled along, I worried about being retired. Pulled up on tires and forgotten next to an old shed. Maybe a youngster will want to go fishing and remember me. I don't have much hope. I haven't given up hope, even as I feel my keel beginning to rot. And the thing is that the painter contacted me because what they do, they sometimes will post the poem next to the painting, and they send the poems to the artists. And the artist in this case contacted me and wound up putting that poem next to the picture on her website. And that was nice. So here I started by talking about the wineries encouraging poems along with wine and stuff. The Argyle in Dundee had a painting in the garden, and they invited poets, and I walked around the garden. And so here's my poem for during that time. The Garden of Argyle. A daddy long-legged spider rests on a thin gray-blue leaf, thinking this is a friendly place, and contemplates its next move. White-tan aisles of crushed rock weave with relaxed purpose through confident spiky grasses and slender stalks of demure flowers. There are sounds like sacred place of a historic times, with dinosaur roars and screeches coming through the dark wall, the deep foliage. The garden is a moat between the stream of life, Highway 99, and the magic castle of wine and smiles. One more, and I'm done. We really appreciate the chance to do Poetry While You Wait. I invite anybody that wants to come and give us a topic. This is an old poem, a little different than what I write nowadays. I lived in Portland for a lot of years. City runner. He runs the same mile, an easy pace, spring and a wet wind, ivy soft to brick walls and an ivy-wrapped trees cling, and above the lumpy clouds to streamers, a long strand of ivy decorates the table in a church basement for a party organized by a guest of honor. The perfume of soaked earth mixed with bus fumes, an elixir of the city, deep drawn into the runner, then exhaled in flimsy smoke. Meanwhile, an accomplice sets down alone to a hot and sour soup in a Chinese restaurant, thinking how language with a word waits for a voice to perform a delicate, controlled surgery of sound. The steady rain beats down on steamed windows. The runner goes by in a foggy haze, a bird's flight caught by the corner of an eye. An old woman talks of soaring colors in her girlhood in Antwerp. Then there is the suspect, who has forgotten innocence, who is sure everyone is truly guilty, and also afraid of forgiveness. Standing in the red shadows, an overcoat wrapped against the damp, prospects of suspect's soft, empty stomach, but a cold comes out of the concrete, oozes up through the soles of his feet, into the center of his bones. A runner caught in the car lights is one more prey to ignore. Later, a man and a woman walk by on their way to a warm room and a hard bed. Thank you.
It's fine. Lucy, explainer. This is the mic so folks can hear you, and then this is the mic so folks who are watching this on our local cable MCM 11 will be able to hear you.
Well, I wish I had something as beautiful and gem-like as the poetry that we just heard from Bethany, but instead I have something called, "Would You Please Restrain Your Crocodile Shoes?" She was not from around here. Her giant movie star sunglasses screamed tourist, as did her flawless tan and Gucci sundress. She strode down 3rd Street, eyeing the carved gourds in the gallery, tasting an audacious Pinot at R. Stewart and another at Ransom. On her way to meeting friends at Nick's, her heel catches a sidewalk crack and she's down in a heap, wondering what hit her. She looked at the broken heel of her crocodile stilettos and cursed Manolo Blahnik. An earnest zero-waste volunteer with a man bun ran to assist, offering his arm. "Do I look like your grandmother?" she snarled. Sarcasm dripped from her ruby lips like salsa from a tortilla chip. As she rose, straightened her clothes, and with the dignified air of an experienced tippler, continued along the street, bobbing up and down like a carousel pony on her one good heel.
Just in time. I know. That was wonderful. Thank you, Lucy. I know, I feel like you might have struck a nerve in this room. Dave.
Well, I love this event so much I tried to come last week. I'm a school teacher, and I went back to school last week, and I thought for sure it was September, and so I came to read poetry. Thank you for supporting me. I spend a lot of time rafting and out in the wilderness, and I absolutely love it, and I try through poetry to convey that feeling, and so I have a couple of attempts here. This one's called Uncluttered Space. Finding space in the wilderness to disconnect and remove places where maps are uncluttered, free of names, dots, and lines. We drive for hours, to hike for miles, or to drift canyons, parts of creation that can't be paved or severed by highways, to be alone, but never lonely. We lighten our load and carry only necessities, comforts that we crave, and the clutter of the everyday left behind. Miles earned only with effort, the day's existence marked by physical strain. We seek the beauty of the Creator's hand and glory in His artistry, unmatched by man's clumsy attempt to create ease. Trading the couch for the river's edge or mountain meadow, and climate control for a seat by the campfire, we are reminded that we need so little, yet want so much, and are humbled by the price we pay. We escape, living with the tension of making our way in the uncluttered space that is only filled with hard-won beauty. So this is another attempt at the same thing, but mostly rafting. Reduced. I sit riverside and watch the water's slow march back to the sea. Carried away on currents, I submit to the rinsing of my soul and the shrinking of my domain to a raft. Necessities contained, reduced to the relevant. I become a survivor, elemental and basic. Nature's rhythm, current and light, my only agenda. Unending rivers, my dream. My brother always said there's nothing funner than a rope swing, and that became a poem somehow. Google Docs didn't like it, it understruck all these things, but it got onto the page anyway. And this is him and I when we were much younger. There's nothing funner than a rope swing, wild limbs flailing the air, arching out over the glacier-fed river, emptying into Mayfield Lake. Pearlescent water suspends maple leaves. Tranquility awaits explosion. Knock-kneed, toe-headed boys launch themselves into her embrace. Adrenaline, the perfect antidote for glacial chill.
Thank you. Okay. Deb?
I had the pleasure of taking a writing workshop with Kim Stafford, and he taught us about pantoums, and that's a Malaysian form that he said is also kind of popular in France, and it's repeating patterns. So there's stanzas with repeating patterns in a set way. And Kim likes to do optional homework, and this was homework based after we were reading poems by Natalie Diaz, and it was to write something too hard to write about. So I'm going to try and read it to you today. Is the sound okay? Okay. It's called Find a Way. At the US border, children, families jailed, fleeing brutal violence, seeking asylum, terrorized, tortured, at home and here. Now we see how it happens. Fleeing brutal violence, seeking asylum, at fascism's border, patterns repeat. Now we see how it happens. Release children from cages, go beyond fear. At fascism's border, patterns repeat. Love takes us past boundaries. Release children from cages, go beyond fear. Reach out, question till what we must do comes clear. Love takes us past boundaries. Terrorized, tortured, at home and here. Reach out, question till what we must do comes clear. At the US border, children, families jailed. In Mississippi, workers rounded up, jailed, processing chicken, supporting their families, brutalized, terrorized, not far from home. Now we see how it happens. The US government taking parents from children. At fascism's border, patterns repeat. Now we see how it happens. Release families from fear. This violence is near. At fascism's border, patterns repeat. Love takes us past boundaries. Release families from fear. This violence is near. Reach out, question till what we must do comes clear. Love takes us past boundaries. Brutalized, terrorized, not far from home. Reach out, question till what we must do comes clear. In our country, children, families, dehumanized, jailed. And on a lighter note, in terms of summer, I'll start with this one, which I call Delight. My friend says she's never closer to God than when picking blueberries. My love for blueberries began eating my grandmother's pie, warm, sweet, bursting with fruit, nestled in a fine, gently browned crust, vanilla ice cream melting on top. Grandma didn't use recipes, but when I asked, wrote it down, sent it to me. never tasted like hers. All right. There you go.
Thank you. Bruce?
In July, there was an earthquake, and it was kind of upstaged by Dorian recently, but while I was thinking about something to write in July, the earthquake seemed preeminent in my thoughts, so here we go. Earth shaking. So, Mother Earth, you had one of those days. We can certainly relate. The stress of dealing with climate change, fracking, lava burns, asteroids, and having to constantly remind the moon to change the dang tide. So you entertain a notion, break routine with some thrill, slide on a stool at the Armageddon grill, let down the hair, blow off some steam, rock your world. Woo! Start the music, pop the cap off a tall volcano, serve a straight-up earthquake with aftershocks and tsunami chasers. They get the hanging fruit swinging on a mudslide Monday, a tornado Tuesday, or a whirlwind Wednesday, or a thunderstorm Thursday, or a forest fire Friday, and a cyclone Saturday when the whistling wings of a million mad ducks will fill your wind-blown waterways. Eventually, you may downshift into smooth sailing Sunday, nice and easy with all things gently shaken and stirred. Okay, I've got one more that was from one of the from the recent Poetry While You Wait event, and the topic was they were making salsa. They wanted a poem. So, salsa celebration. This time of year, when someone comes in from the garden carrying a bucket, the kitchen counter can get pretty crowded. And there's usually a six-legged hitchhiker or two that needs to be dealt with. Today, we've got plenty of action. Let's get ready to ramp it up. In this corner, weighing in at 5.5 pounds, it's the tomato team of Million Bells and yellow taxis. They'll be mixing it up with an amazing array of tumbling tomatillos, piling peppers along with the onslaught of onions. Uh-oh, what's this? Se habla habanero? See, that's right. We are spicing it up a bit this year. Just 3 of those little beauties should be enough to take the temperature up, 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 here in our own little slice of salsa supreme civilization.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. Christopher? I know that's what my kitchen counter looks like right now, so that one hit a little close to home. Christopher?
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't expect this, but I find when I get here that tonight is Dead Cat Night, because I have a poem here, Keening for a Beloved Cat. And I actually, before I read that, I just wanted to make the point that this is not, it's unnecessary now, I see, but I wanted to make the point that it's not a unique subject for poetry. You probably remember there's a poem by Thomas Gray, the Ode on the Death of a Favorite Cat Drowned in a Tub of Goldfishes. But anyway, I didn't know this one. There's another one here that I didn't know until I went through Philip Larkin's Oxford Book of English, 20th Century English Verse. It's very short, so it's by someone called Hal Summers, whom I've never heard of, but it's possibly very few people have, because they give in the table of contents they give the title of Book of Poems by that author that the poem, the particular selection is taken from. And when it comes to Hal Summers, all it gives is from the Listener, 24th of March 1960. Which looks as if he never did publish a book of poems. So perhaps he's rather like us, sort of an amateur. But anyway, his poem is called My Old Cat, and it goes, "My old cat is dead, who would butt me with his head. He had the sleekest fur, he had the blackest purr. Always gentle with us was this black puss. But when I found him today, stiff and cold where he lay, his look was a lion's, full of rage, defiance. Oh, he would not pretend that what came was a friend, but met it with pure hate. Well died my old cat." I guess that's sort of the more manly way to do it. Well died my old cat. Mine, I'm afraid mine is a little bit more maudlin and lachrymose, but anyway. That's why I call it a keening, and it makes it defensively. Okay. His name, this is the same cat whose death I announced last November. And at that time I didn't have a proper mourning poem to read for him, so I read a poem in his praise, which I'd written during his lifetime. But in April I got most of this and then finished it off in August. "Muffin, my dear, the bumblebees are working in the lavender. The grass has come back thick and high. The high bush cranberry has formed its cool and leafy cavern where, in summertime, you always like to lie. But you will never come again, raising your tail to welcome me, and I am weeping long and sore. I know there's no truth in the hope some offer as compensatory, that you might meet me at the golden door. Today I finally washed out and sanitized your litter box, and oh, I could not help but weep. To wipe away the last even of your mortal excreta marks, mind founds on body what it holds most deep. You don't exist now, but I'm here who can remember yesteryear and see the garden's life return, setting for me these empty scenes of Muffin and his Christopher, which will mean nothing to the unconcerned." That's it. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Everybody has the same thing.
I know. It happens quite a bit. Thank you. Okay, Mike? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hope I'm not too loud. I've got one. I'm kind of old guy. Well, I guess there's a few old guys in here. Anyway, from the 60s, so this is a memorandum to a friend of mine who's still alive. And he's getting ready to make a reunion. About every 20 years we have a reunion back in my hometown in Casper, Wyoming. And he's invited all these people that we used to hang around with. And it's called the hippie reunion, believe it or not. So anyway, this is in his honor. And I wrote this quite a long time ago. It's called Matthew's Creed. The sun came out that day, the frost hadn't gone away. Everything touched by the rays gave off a wimpy, steamy stream, a perfect Wyoming spring morning. I could see my breath, exhaust from my body pipe, belching the fumes of the Ode de la Toca, a peculiar breakfast for most, but considered fuel for the internal combustion oven I called the gut. Old Saul is a very welcome sight. Welcomed like my oldest friend that was there from the beginning in the city park, the beginning's beginning. Sitting there as easy as you please in his leathery fringe and beads, while I rode down from my heaven on earth in a cloud of patchouli and reefer, with brown-stained fingertips and holy blue jeans on a skateboard death trap, prehistoric by today's longboard standards. And just like that, we sparked up a conversation as I sparked up a cigarette. "Hey," the fringed one exclaimed, "Fritz the cat, is far out, man. And with that was formed the living contract to which we both signed our names, in good faith for good times to the bitter end. The way only best buds could do. And from that day forward, from that innocent beginning, grew a bond of lasting strength, a bond so strong that even time, the master of all things in God's created universe, the boss of bosses, the big kahuna, the supreme final sayer, could not tear apart. What a summer it was. I guess I'll read one more. And this one I'm going to read because when I wrote it, it was like about someone else, and now I'm old. And now it's about me. That's what. Wow, how things change, right? So anyway, and this is called, well, let's see, where is that? Sorry for the delay.
That happens at your age.
Thank you. That's what I needed. You're my friend. The name of the poem is where is that? Oh, okay. Well, okay. Right here, number 5. I'm sorry. Good Lord. I wrote this book, if you can believe that. Some people recite poetry out of their memory. Wow, what a great thing that would be. Okay, this is called Evil Night. On the evil night there comes a time when happy endings and dreams sublime will appear and rested peace does come. Sadly though, too late for some, whose troubled thoughts bring hurried rest, that beg tranquility be their guest. With fretted brow and worries cursed, baggy eyes and sleepless thirst, can't shut their minds off for the night, can't buy a wink, try as they might. For these souls can only wait till light to try again another evil night. And that's me, so thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Mary Jo? Yay!
Okay. Get me out. This is kind of a downer, so. Anyway, I wrote this in 1997, just around Mother's Day. And my mother, the anniversary of her death is this month on September 25th. Oh!
There you go. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Did you hear all what I had said? It's great wearing these because I can't see your faces. Anyway, it's called A Mother's Love Lost. Mommy, you held my hand and made me feel so warm and fuzzy. I love you, Mommy. You tucked me in. You took care of me when I was ill. You held my hand when you walked me to school on the mornings you went to Mass. You were happy. I was happy. Then you became so tired. You locked the doors during the day and would not let me in. You began falling and bruising your body and your face. You took naps day and night. What happened, Ma, to your life? I was too embarrassed to bring my friends home. I did not know what you would be like when I opened the door. I knew you did not have the flu. I need you, Ma. I am in high school and have many questions about life and the world. I need your advice, but I cannot trust your judgment. Mother, the years have passed now, and you live where others must take care of you. You talk about dying and how you miss your mother. You had so much to offer, so much to give, but you had so much pain preventing you from loving and living. Your funeral was beautiful. Your favorite song was played. The church was filled with family and friends. Your grandchildren read passages from the Bible. Many kind words were said at the reception. 9 years have passed. My daughter is now getting married. Many times I have talked to you. Many times I have missed you, but never as much, as I missed you when you were alive. What happened, Mommy? Okay.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Do we have anyone else that would like to read? I do an awkward countdown. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you all for coming tonight. Welcome back to Poetry Nights. Our next poetry night will be October 3rd. Thanks, Nancy. And actually, believe it or not, I know who the poet's going to be. I know. We'll have Jennifer Richter here. And then in November, we'll have John Sibley Williams. And then in December, we'll have a group doing a art/poetry reading. I mostly said that because I'm so proud that I have like the next 3 months booked out. So thank you. And then also, Mike had mentioned the Paintings to Poems program. We will be having that on October 18th, which is a Thursday. Yep, it's the third Thursday in October. And like Mike said, it is, we invite everyone into the gallery. We give you about an hour to find a piece of art that really speaks to you in a poetic way or not. It doesn't have to. You can still write a poem about it. And then we share the poems. It's a bit different than our normal poetry night readings, and it's a lot of fun. And the artists do really, they love hearing the poems that people make up about their work. So, thank you all. Thank you again to Bethany for the beautiful performance. She has books for sale up here. And great, we'll see you all on October 3rd. Thank you.